Hey everybody. So I'd like to speak with you today about education. If you're like so many others out there, you're thinking about what should I do for my education? Should I go back to school, go and get this degree, go on to college, get a master's degree? Education is something that's always stressed as being very important by our parents and by society as a whole. But what I'd like to do today is to give you a very different perspective for you to think about. Normally we think of education as being formal education. And what I'd like to do is just use a little metaphor here. If you think about your education going from kindergarten through getting your high school diploma, I like to think of that as a butter knife. So here we have this butter knife. It's great as a kitchen utensil. It actually has pretty good uses in terms of just, spreading butter, right? Or spreading your peanut butter and jelly. And then, people think of, well, next thing I should do is I should get my bachelor's degree. So a bachelor's degree could be something like this. It's now a steak knife. Not only can you use this steak knife to butter your bread, but you can also use it to kind of cut meat. That's kind of your bachelor's degree. So now that you've gotten your bachelor's degree, so many people start to think about, well, I really don't know what I want to do in my life. So maybe the best thing to do would be just to continue on with my education and get a master's degree. A master's degree I kind of like to think of as being the saw. So now it has more applications than, the butter knife that we saw before or the steak knife. This saw, it's now sharper. It has a little bit more use. And then finally, people start thinking, well, I've got my master's degree. Why don't I just go all the way and let's get my PhD or my doctorate degree. So I like to think of this as this katana sword here, which, as you know, is extremely sharp. Really, it's a weapon now. So I'm using this metaphor as a way of saying that as you advance in education, you start to know more and more about less and less. Well, in my case, I was trained as an electrical engineer. Got my undergraduate degree in electrical engineering. I could have gone forward and gotten my master's in electrical engineering and then my PhD, in which I would have become a more educated and more trained person in terms of a advanced degree in those fields. I'm going to offer you a completely different approach to education, which is that rather than thinking about getting your butter knife, your steak knife, and getting eventually to this really sharp katana sword here, think about how you might be able to expand your education into more and broader different areas. So what I think of is a Swiss Army knife. Right, so on this Swiss Army knife, what you have, of course, your knife that's here, but you also have these other tools that are on here. And in this case, I've got a set of pliers, I've got a Phillips screwdriver, I even have a magnifying glass, a corkscrew, a nail file, a pair of scissors that are here. So now what I have is all of these different tools that are available to me. And so rather than thinking about just getting a sharper and sharper knife or a sword this way, what I'm thinking about is how can I build my education and gather up a bigger variety of tools. And so what this means is that if someone asks me to fix something, it's likely that I have the tools within my Swiss Army knife. And so that's a different way of thinking about your education, is to keep adding on more tools and really build up your Swiss Army knife. So now let me just say this so that we're very clear on this. There are some professions where absolutely we need people to be the sharpest sword that's out there. If I'm going to have heart surgery, I don't want somebody who has a Swiss Army knife, right? I want somebody who has been very smart during their bachelor's degree, who need people who are very peaked and very much specialists within their particular areas. But what I'm talking about is for most of us who are generalists, that really a bigger approach and what might be better for you in the long run is to build up your Swiss Army knife here. And what that means is really gaining new experiences throughout your life so that you're adaptable, and as conditions change, which they certainly will going forward, that you can apply different tools to different situations. And so I just want to leave that with you, that this is a completely different way of thinking about your education, and hopefully you'll consider this as you move forward. Thank you.